Hi, I'd like to talk about DNA editing today. The thought of being able to edit DNA so that you can have a baby that will not have a genetically passed on disease that you carry or have yourself is amazing. The thought that we could also edit out an existing disease in a person through this technology is also just like blows my mind, and it makes me so excited for the future because there are so many things that we can do. For example, there's currently a drug being sold by a company called Spark Therapeutics that deals with a particular type of blindness caused by a defective DNA sequence where it's both sides from the husband and wife are bad, resulting in the degenerative loss of vision. There's another one that causes SMA, which is kind of like ALS, I guess it is. But basically, it's a degeneration of the muscles to the point where eventually you die. Um, and there's effort out there to fix these problems. Now, the one with the SMA thing is not being fixed by Spark and their Luxturna product, but the blindness one is, and it's wonderful. There was a boy on the Netflix miniseries called Unnatural Selection, which is a four-part series just about the gene editing, and this boy, his name is Jackson. He got the Luxturna through I think through his insurance company, which is great, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And I was watching this in every one of the four episodes. They broke it down into different parts. They were looking at this guy who is trying to genetically edit dogs. They looked at Jackson, who's blind. They looked at Nick, who's got SMA. They looked at Josiah Zahner, who is a biohacker who provides through his website, theodin.com, biohacking toolkits. And they talked about other people within the industry, some of whom are PhDs and doctors and stuff like that, and some of them who do not have any actual degrees or anything at all, like the dog guy, whose name escapes my mind at the moment. But they're working on it. There's even a guy who volunteered to do some experimentation with the N6 antibody to try and figure out a way for humans to be given a resistance to HIV, which the guy wasn't just doing it for himself, he said. He was also doing it for the other people who would benefit. And there are millions and millions of people around the world who have HIV. And as an HPV carrier, I can understand. I probably also would be the kind of person who would be willing to self-experiment. I don't know what's going on with his work. The last injection he had earlier this year, there was an adverse reaction in the area of the injection, and he did not post anything since then as to what his condition is like, whether the HIV levels have dropped or risen or stayed the same or anything like that. Still, he's very brave. And there's a Dr. Esfeld who is working to try and eradicate Lyme tick disease by genetically modifying mice that typically carry it in order to make them resistant to the Lyme tick disease. He has received approval from Chappaquiddick Island's population and also from Massachusetts for a field test as well. So this is all amazing stuff. And getting back to the boy who's blind, Jackson, the reason I think it's amazing that he was able to get that is, as I was watching, I was like, tears would come to my eyes thinking, is this boy going to be able to have his eyesight back? Because he wants to be the first person to go to Mars. And in order to be an astronaut, you have to have 20/20 vision. And going blind makes that impossible, right? He was still able to live a pretty good life despite his increasing blindness, but it was eventually going to become 100% blindness. He managed to get the treatment. Now, just so you understand, treating one eye costs, just the first year, one eye costs over $400,000. That means a price tag of, just for the first year of treatment, over $800,000. How many people with this rare condition can actually pay that price tag? And what is that price tag doing to the insurance industry as far as premiums and things like that? Who are going to be locked out of the possibility of getting this cure because Spark Therapeutics is so greedy that they are charging hundreds of thousands of dollars, not just the first year, but every year it's still over $100,000 for the treatment. So apparently it's an ongoing thing. It's a treatment, not a cure. And Jackson is now able to see very, very well. But keep in mind that Spark was at least partially funded by taxpayer money. Just like the EpiPen was funded by taxpayer money and then was bought by Mylan, who overcharges for the EpiPen, meaning that millions of people around the world who need the EpiPen may not be able to afford it because of Mylan's greed. So still, the biohacking community is trying to figure out ways to make the ability to edit your own genome financially possible, and also for animals. The guy who does it for dogs, he and Josiah Zahner are working together to try and produce a kit that can be sent to dog owners so they can edit their dogs' genomes. I'm not sure if it's going to be like an in vitro thing or if it's actually doing the dogs that are already alive. But what he was shown on Unnatural Selection was that he was working on the ovum to make the changes. But he was experiencing setbacks but this was a while ago, so it's pretty exciting stuff to think that diseases can be edited out of the human species entirely over time. So one of the things that I had a problem with, however, was Josiah Zahner's very naive perception through most of the 4 episodes about how this is great and there isn't a downside to making it publicly available. In the last episode, he started to realize there is a downside. There are bad things that are happening. In fact, Josiah, in some degree, Josiah and the dog guy, they had been involved in the thing done by Ascendance with the guy who did the N6 injections, and he backed off when he started to see that things were going down a dark path. And the dog guy, his name's Aaron, I believe. Aaron also was very worried about the direction that things were being taken by. I'm sorry, his name isn't Aaron. Aaron is the guy who owned Ascendance. Anyways, Aaron was really pushing the guy with HIV, and he wasn't being careful enough. He ended up dying, so he's out of the picture, but the dog guy and Josiah had both backed away from him and started to become increasingly concerned about the possible negative side of things, like it getting out of control. Now in the U.S., you're not allowed to genetically modify babies, but there are other countries. In fact, the first publicly admitted genetically modified baby was done in China. There are a lot of countries that don't allow what's called a germline change, which means that it's something that can be passed on to your children, and so on, from one generation to the next, and making it an inherited change. America doesn't allow that to be done to babies. But let me just say, there are people who talk about this technology as if it's the greatest thing since everything really, and they're very gung ho about supporting it and making sure that it's available to the public. Yet this is unregulated by the government, which makes it easier for these people to do this until the regulations are put into place. But it also makes it easy for everybody to do it. So that means that criminals could get a hold of this technology and start using it to and change themselves, to make themselves more powerful, to attack people with. Maybe make somebody kind of like do an Ebola thing, but in 1 minute instead of several days or a week or whatever it is. The potential for the use and abuse of gene editing is huge. So yes, we can benefit immensely from gene editing by improving the human race. Not in a eugenics, let's kill everybody who's defective sort of way, but in a future generations aren't going to have to worry about these problems. We won't even necessarily have to worry about getting vaccinations, immunizations, and inoculations because we can edit the genes to make ourselves immune forever. But still, think about this. Think about what's the worst thing that could be done if you can edit the genome of any living creature. Anyone. Okay? Not just humans, but any living thing on the planet can now pretty much be edited to change their genetic makeup. Do you see what I see? The potential, the huge, huge, dangerous potential. I mean, biological weapons will not be necessary anymore because gene editing weapons will replace them. I know a guy who said he wants to get the CRISPR so that he can design a virus that will kill off anybody below a certain IQ because he hates stupid people. Ugh. But does that mean that we shouldn't do it? Well, here's the thing. Back when abortion was illegal in the U.S., did it stop abortions from happening? No. In fact, people who couldn't afford it would have secret abortions, sometimes that were very dangerous. Sometimes people died as a result of the abortion. Some of the abortions were extremely primitive, causing a miscarriage by pressing down on the body and drinking certain substances, and caused fatalities as well. And a lot of people who could afford it would go to Mexico or go to another country where abortions are legal, and sometimes even in those countries the procedures were dangerous. So people were putting their lives at risk to have abortions. And I'm not going to get into the whole morality thing regarding religion and the Christian stance and other religions' stance on abortions. That's outside the scope of this monologue. I'm just using abortions as an example. If it's illegal in the U.S., which some of it is, some of it isn't, but it's legal in other countries, people will go to those countries. Okay. In Indonesia, it's almost impossible to have a mixed religion marriage. So some people will go to Singapore or other countries to have their marriage with two different religions, and then go back to to Indonesia and register their marriage as having been performed overseas. So people will still go to these countries where gene editing is legal to get what they want. Maybe they just want their baby to have green eyes. Maybe they want to grow tentacles. I don't know. The sky's the limit pretty much once everything is figured out. The point is that no matter what we do, it's still going to happen. And look at what happened by illegalizing drugs. It gave more power to the drug lords by causing the price of these drugs that were illegalized to go up. When you have more money coming in and the same costs essentially for labor you are going to have huge profits that make you incredibly powerful. The war on drugs is a failure because it only increases the strength, the power, the ruthlessness of the drug lords. Okay? So if we illegalize this stuff, it's not going to help. Okay? It needs, number one, it needs to be publicly available at affordable prices, but it needs to be regulated to minimize abuse. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Legal or illegal, regulated or not regulated, there are people out there, I am sure, already who are working on doing dangerous gene editing. Gene editing that provides special abilities, for example, or that will create future generations of humans who may not even look human anymore. I mean, look, let's be honest here. If I could choose a genetic change to my genes, I would choose to have the abilities that the octopus has in terms of color and texture change of their skin. I mean, that's amazing. It makes the chameleon look dumb. I mean, yeah, sure, chameleons can do some pretty amazing things, but the octopus can do it in the blink of an eye. They can do it consciously. They can communicate with this stuff, and it's just mind-blowing what the octopus can do with its skin. So I would go for that. I mean, so here's what I'm going to predict. Okay, I'm going to predict that all efforts to illegalize gene editing will ultimately cause problems. They will fail because of the black market, because of other countries that don't make them illegal. And in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to start to see people who, just like with tattooing, which I have a tattoo, and piercings and body scarring and making giant earlobes and stuff, people are going to get into this, and you're going to start seeing people out there with different skin colors that we've never seen before, hair colors that are permanent, eye colors that are completely unusual. The contact lens industry will suffer. The hair dye industry will suffer. You know, it's going to turn the world upside down. We're going to see people who are going to cease to look like people because they're going to choose, well, I want to look like a Klingon. I want to look like an elf. I want to look like a Balrog. And there are people who are going to do it. I mean, look, we've already got people who've had, between surgical implants and tattoos and doing surgical procedures on them, made themselves look like other creatures, like the lizard man. I mean, the guy even went so far as to have the end of his tongue cut so that it's kind of like a snake's tongue. And he's got tattoos over pretty much all of his body so that he looks like he has scales. And he's got implants here to make ridges where the eyebrows are, and there are people who go for the Barbie look and do all these other things. So this is not going to be stuck at the current level. It's going to go to gene editing levels. I mean, plastic surgery. Hey, why have plastic surgery when you can do gene editing? Why just take a risk on your baby being born with genetic problems when you can guarantee your baby is going to be super smart, super strong, super healthy? There is no way that this technology can be suppressed because it's already global. There are already countries doing it, even in the US. So for people to say, we've got to ban this, we can't do this, well, you're just putting your head in the sand and ignoring the reality that making it illegal just makes it more profitable and makes it so that only certain people will take advantage of it. Who has the financial resources to take advantage of illegal products? Not me, not you. So don't illegalize gene editing. Keep control of it, but don't illegalize it, because that will be more dangerous for everybody. Okay? Thanks for listening. Bye.